thanks again for tuning into this interview with Spencer Plummer. I'm really excited for you to hear what he has to say about his perspective on life and all of his industry experience and what he's learned throughout his career. I want to provide some background about his achievements and who we are talking with today. Spencer graduated from Harvard with a master's in business, worked in the equine industry where he specialized in breeding and raising world-class broodmares and stallions, was involved in the real estate development as well, working on property acquisitions, development, and management, and was involved in a lot of complex land issues and disputes. Also highly involved in the community, was part of the YPO program and a community council chair for some of the elementaries and junior highs local to him, and participated in almost all youth athletics you could think of. So I hope you're as stoked as I am to hear this interview. It is very insightful. So without further ado, let's see what he's got to say to us. Well, Spencer, thanks for joining us in this interview. I'd like to just start with you telling me a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, any passions you have, just anything you'd like to share with us.
Spencer Plummer, the third, sometimes junior. My passion or what I do is probably create value for my family, for my shareholders, and for stakeholders. And I do so by having an abundance and growth mindset.
And tell us a little bit about your industry. What do you work in currently, or what have you worked in the past?
Currently in real estate and owning a ranch, a farm, and learning how to rezone that to either commercial and or residential. I've owned parts of developments in residential and commercial industrial space as a minor shareholder, and had lots of experience with even fixing and flipping is what they call it, homes. So that's probably the last 15 years.
Okay.
Lending, done some lending, but that's kind of a third act to my career. First act was horses. That was somewhat of a surprise and shift as I got into that. And then I took some chance on oil and gas, but it's kind of led to thinking I was going to get into somewhere safe and secure, such as real estate, and it's not exactly that, as I've learned.
Well, there's risk everywhere, right? That happens. So, well, that's fun. Fun to hear that you've experimented with a lot of things. I myself have had my fair share of different work. Definitely not as much experience as you, but it's fun to try little pieces of everything, and you can find what you like in the end. So, well, I just want to start with the first question of saying, what sacrifices have you made in your journey as of today?
A lot, depending on sacrifices for my career or.
Well, we can take it both ways. Let's start with your career.
I think I have a mindset where I don't know how to do a lot of things well, so I focus on what I can control, and I just put myself into it. So I think I sacrificed a lot of my time with my kids when they were young, or
Sure.
my time with my, I don't know if I missed, but I was told I missed lots of birthdays and things like that for my career. Even when I was present, I was still checked into work. I think there was a window I thought I had to grow and to do things, and so I was just all in, never unplugged. So I think I didn't know I was sacrificing until a decade after spending more time with friends kind of my age. I realized I had put a lot of time in to an area of my life of focusing on my career or work or the company. And that's, I think that was looking back, I didn't look at it as a sacrifice. I thought that's what you do.
Sure.
But I realized I probably was sacrificing, time and exercise, going to the gym and going to things I enjoyed now, but I wasn't doing those things then.
Well, it sounds like you were very dedicated with your work at the time. With your sacrifices, You mentioned that you regret some of them, but I want to know, you put a lot of time and effort into your work. Do you feel like it was worth it in the end?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to kind of play Monday morning quarterback and look
Yeah,
back
yeah,
and
yeah.
go, well, that it worked out. It may not have worked out, could have cost a marriage, could have cost lots of things. But when I went to school, they used the word I learned in economics, I believe, opportunity cost,
Yep.
and I didn't know what that meant. But the way it was described to me is just what am I giving up now for something maybe in the future, something better.
Hmm.
And I look at kind of post high school, what did I do at that time? For, did I go straight to college, or did I have a job, or did I go do something that I thought was an investment in myself or my future? And the answer was yes. And then I went to college and went summer school so that I could catch up from maybe something I missed. But even after, when I started my career, when I moved to Kentucky, post work, post leaving the office, I was still reading books that
Hmm.
only had to do with my industry. So I was just all in. And as I look back, I don't think I have regrets per se. I would just say that I gave up in my mind something for something I thought was going to be something better.
Hmm.
And as I look back, it was uh, the answer is, was it better? Yes. Was it tough? Yes. Was it could I have maybe had more bounce? Yes. I don't.
Well,
There's a lot of
right. You
things,
can't
but
go back into the past and change anything.
yeah,
But I guess what I was referring to is you were so dedicated to your work, you did well in your work because you put so much time into it. I think a lot of people struggle to ever start or do anything, where they hit something hard and they can't get past that wall. And it sounds like, there are two types of people. One person goes through the wall, and the other person hits the wall and turns around and goes the other way. And so I just was mentioning that this dedication that you explained about work, um, it just shows that you're willing to run through that wall.
yeah, and I think I think as people look back in time and say if they've done something they think they've done well, I also have to be humble about it. Realize maybe sometimes it was the timing of the market.
Hmm.
A lot of people try a lot of things, and
Yeah.
they just do it at the wrong time.
Right.
I think I was just fortunate. There are a lot of things kind of lined up. What it required me to do is what I could control,
Hmm.
and my efforts, I suppose. But then there's also a lot of other factors that go into that.
Right.
So I think all I can look back is what did I do that was maybe helpful for me and my family and a young family, and you know, um, but I think that's kind of my
Hmm.
part of my story.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. So I want to know, with Empower You, the reason we do these interviews is we provide motivational videos. We try to get people to do small little things every day. And one of my favorite questions is asking people, what is your motivation? We try to motivate people in all sorts of different ways, and everybody takes it differently. But what has motivated you in your life?
I grew up as a twin. I have a twin sister, and I think it was just learning to compete at a young age. And part of it was is to please her, and also you're all constantly competing for time and attention and whatever. But I think for me, what's motivated me is I've always felt like I was kind of an underdog,
Hmm.
and just never quite ever good enough at anything. And so I always tried to just, and I still think that. So I still
Hmm.
try to just do well at things, and um, that drives me. Whatever it is in my life that drives me, and I get up and I'm hungry for just um, just curiosity and
Hmm.
whatever it may be. But that drives me, and maybe it's lack of confidence. I don't know what it is, but I don't think I don't have confidence, but I think I'm just
Hmm.
driven to grow.
Yeah.
I don't know what my peak or ceiling is, so I just keep trying.
Well, that's what they say. They say that when you lack the skills or lack the knowledge, or are not as good as some people naturally have those skills, you put in the work and you easily rise up to their level, right? You start doing the small little things, keep grinding, and you get up to that point. So I think you're right. I think the Michael Jordan underdog story of not making a team, putting in the work and becoming, a great basketball player. Same thing with business, as you put in, all of the practices, all of your work, all the extra hours that you work, eventually come back to repay you. And I think you get smarter as you put in more time and work. And like you're saying, reading books, it makes you smarter, and every little bit counts, right? So, well, that's great motivation. I think it's a fun way to think about life. Not, I mean, you talk about being the underdog. I think that's a little bit of humility inside you, where you don't have the pride to say I'm the best, and some would argue maybe you are at some things. So I think it's a good perspective to have, and I think it shows that you always have something more you can do. That you're not at kind of your peak. So I think that's a very healthy perspective. Uh, I like to ask this as well. When we ask this question, what is your why? Um, there is a study, obviously, that you can read about or learn about, asking the seven whys. And eventually, after you ask yourself why 7 times, you get down to the root of what is the why. So I'm just curious, from your uh, thinking, your perspective, what do you believe your why is to why you work, why you do everything that you do?
Hmm. I don't know. That's a. I don't know if I've ever really dug down deep to do that. I don't know any other way.
Hmm.
I think the way I was raised by two entrepreneurial parents, and it's just what you do.
Hmm.
You just get up and go, and you know, there's there's no other way.
Hmm.
So I don't know. It's just kind of the way I think I was raised, is you just get up and go.
Hmm.
And I think it's from my parents' perspective, it's the root of my religious belief is probably my deepest why. To I know I get to take the knowledge with me when I'm gone, when I pass beyond this life.
Hmm.
So that's part of it. At the same time, it's it's what did I contribute in this world. Part of that is what kind of husband was I to my wife, what kind of father was I to my kids. And
Hmm.
so far I've been given time to work on that and try to figure out how to be better at that. But I think that's changed from when I was younger. My younger years, my why was, you know, pounding my chest and wanting to, be somebody. And
Hmm.
so that was an ego check at a younger age. And then once I felt like I had something, and then eventually it was, whatever the world calls a success. And I felt like, okay, there's that was the why.
Hmm.
But now my why is more kind of the legacy of, like, how do I pass this on? How do I share this life experience with someone else, that they can have understand what their why is at different times of life? Because my why was
Hmm.
different when I was single versus being a husband,
Sure.
married. So
Yeah.
I think that's evolved for me.
Yeah.
So today, I don't know. My why is more rooted around a lot of people rather than just me.
Yeah.
But it's all still centered for me, the man upstairs.
Sure. No, I think that's very wise. It sounds like you understand your worth. I think a lot of times we are driven by how much we care about ourselves. And that's kind of what I'm understanding from you, is you just do it because you can, you're capable, and you want to be your best self, right? And the same thing goes back to where you talked about your value at the beginning. I think you are courageous enough to share your value with those around you, which is why you kind of have this bubble of people that you try to influence. And I think that's very prudent. So,
Well, it's an interesting thing that in my life today, to where I've been able to kind of see different parts of the world. And at a younger age, 19, 20 years of age, I got to see kind of really inside homes of what I didn't understand poverty and suffering meant. And then as I've traveled the world and seen, I'm pretty fortunate to be born in the United States, a white male American I speak English.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have all the functionality of my mind,
Yep.
my body. It's just so I think part of it is just understanding more the who I can be,
Hmm.
where other places maybe with our liberties we have in the United States, other places just don't have that. They just
Yeah.
don't have those opportunities. So,
Hmm.
you know, I can waste them or I can do something with them.
Yeah. Couldn't say it any better. You do it because you can. You do it because you're capable. I think that's wonderful. Really cool. Uh, Sounds like you've had your fair share of hard times in life. Uh, what advice could you give on how to get through those times?
Hmm. I was one of my big first challenges, and I've had many. Um, it Somebody's told me that whenever you're in the middle of it, like you're just in the middle of it, and the waves are crashing on you and you're drowning,
Yeah.
is to not try to change too many of the big things. Don't make any really big decisions.
Hmm.
Um, to buoy yourself up, you've got to surround yourself with who is your team, who are your people, and surround yourself by that group. You know, and whether it be friends or family or loved one, your spouse or even your kids, and try not to make any changes. Second thing I did
Hmm.
was I started not looking at myself, woe is me. I started taking time, which it was completely in an opposite of what I felt. I felt very alone. In the middle of a room, I could feel alone.
Hmm.
But I decided I was going to start actually figuring out ways to help other people, whether it was somebody asked me to do this or that. And I challenged myself to just start saying yes. And I started doing that. And then I found I wasn't, I was still in the middle of it, but I wasn't so focused on me because no one really wants to hear your problems or challenges.
Sure.
So I
Yeah.
found when I started doing that, I started feeling, better about myself because I
Hmm.
saw how that person felt by me doing something for them. I may have had a truck available or a trailer or some time where I could help them, and it actually made me feel better. The other thing I did is I
Hmm.
started, I didn't get outside. Instead of just sitting around, I would get outside and go on walks, and just try to just get through the day. I mean, I live in a really great place next to a mountain,
Hmm.
and I can remember I'm kind of a quieter person, but I would climb that mountain on my own, and I would get to a spot where I thought I could actually just scream and yell, and I would, and just kind of let some stuff out. And at the same time, I got to where I got more, I would, for me, calling it prayerful, soulful. I would just try to connect in ways where it was just those different feelings, and do that in kind of a place that I felt like I could, and I got to see my problems from a different perspective, even though that was a physical elevation, kind of bringing myself up to a point looking down. I tried to get my mind where I was looking down at my problems, and I could actually break them down into small things.
Hmm.
So my big problem became small problems, and I said, I can at least work on that. I can do that. I can control this. And all the things I realized I could not control, I started to let go. So
Hmm.
it's nothing I could do. I focused on what I could control, and that allowed me to kind of move forward. And that might
Hmm.
not have been seem like a lot, but it was little steps. And I know that's not a very clear answer, but those are
No, that's great.
some things that I can think about what I was thinking about then, and that's how I kind of got through them.
Yeah. I have the same mentality where I try to help people understand that by little habits every day, you can make strides, right? But trying to do it all at once, especially when you're down in the dumps, is very difficult. Well, what you said reminded me of just kind of looking outward and looking upward. Outward as in if you stop looking at yourself, all your problems, everything you're going through, and start looking outward and doing service, like you mentioned, you kind of forget yourself and you go to work. You start feeling better because you're able to change other people's lives or make other people happier. And it makes you happier, kind of like you mentioned. And upward, uh, I believe in God. I believe that we have opportunities in life where we can be leaders. We can bring other people to Christ, and we can be guides. And so, same thing with outward and upward. As we believe in God, we know that serving others serves God. So if we love God, we serve others. And it kind of makes this happy community of people. And if you surround yourself with happy people, you yourself will eventually get over that slump and become like those that you're around. So that's amazing. That's really good insight. Um, if you were to pick one phrase that you've heard in your life, what would it be that's stood out to you?
Whew. Yeah, there's a lot of. I mean, I heard one actually just that I tried to say to my children for years. That I think is probably worth repeating. That I've said many times, but show me your friends, and I'll show you your future.
Mm,
And um, I've said kind of like, you are what you eat, you are what you read, you are who you hang around,
sure.
things like that. But I think if you think about show me your friends, I'll show you your future, is someone told me once that you're the average of the five people you hang around.
Absolutely.
And I look at that and think about who are my friends today, who do I choose to be with,
Mm,
different times of my life. um, I think the most important decision I ever made in my life was who I married. Um, that person, you eventually start saying the same things. You start finishing sentences. You start to how you dress, how you think, what you say, your value system. That's also with your friends too, and I think that's probably show me your friends and I'll show you your future. I can look back and go, that's pretty darn accurate
mm,
after thinking about my life. And part of that question was how to get through hard times. It'll surprise you who your friends really are when you're going through a tough time.
mm,
I think the people, sometimes some of the people you think are going to be your friends, they're there for you, and the ones that actually show up may be different people than you thought.
mm.
That was interesting.
So you would say that surround yourself with those that, or repeat your phrase again.
Show me your friends and
Show
I'll
me.
show you your future.
That's right. And so you're saying when you're going through the hard times, that's where you find out who your true friends are, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's important. I heard a young man that was coming to the University of Utah, and he was asked, "Why did you go to the U?"
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in Southern California, and he was from really the inner city outside of LA, and he was coming to a very white town, Salt Lake City. Although the University of Utah football team is pretty diverse with kind of
Sure.
their makeup, but at the same time, they all preach family in this football program. But what he said I thought was striking. He said, if I'm going to do well in this world, I need to go to the place that I feel the most uncomfortable to grow the most.
Hmm.
And so, even though that's not part of the phrase you're
No, that's
asking,
amazing.
but I thought, man, am I doing that? So I have to kind of remember, here's my friends, and hopefully they don't all just think the same way I think or whatever. They challenge me. That's a good friend, is challenge me.
Sure.
But do I have friends that also maybe outside of my comfort zone? Um, like this young man was saying, I've tried to think about that.
Hmm.
Okay, how do I still connect and align those two things that I want without just being an echo chamber with the people I surround myself with? Because we tend to do that, whether it's through our own algorithms on the social media. They just
Yep.
tell us what we already think.
That's right. Hmm. No, I think that's a great perspective, and I agree with you that as we put ourselves through hard times, it's how we grow. If we're coasting in life, we may need to set some heavier goals, find some friends that challenge us a little bit more than they do now. So wonderful. Uh, we talked a little bit about value. You said you brought value to your life. That's kind of your journey. But what kinds of value do you bring to those that surround you, whether in a work setting, family setting, just those that are around you?
I think the biggest critic I've got is also my biggest fan is my wife. She would call me intense, and I don't know how to be a different person. And so I would say that in my career, I've always been a little bit intense. I don't know how to say it differently, but I would say just I'm a very much a driven person, and I
Hmm.
think that's actually been to my detriment, if I would say, amongst my colleagues, my peers. I had eventually had to be put in positions where I was in, for better for worse, a leadership position, so that I could be pulled away from maybe just being with everybody all day. And
Mm,
that's just kind of been my I look back and think, man, I wish I could have been a better fellow employee with people, but I found that that wasn't my personality. So,
mm,
what values I think I bring is my greatest uh, value to a company is probably hard work,
mm.
probably just hard work and uh, you know effort and loyalty, and I could be trusted. I'd be on time. I could I could be counted on. I could always be counted on.
Mm.
I think that's really a valuable trait to an employer, whatever the position may be. Employers or companies, I mean, they want people to actually show up. I mean, a lot of people
Absolutely.
get paid and they're not even there. I mean,
Yeah.
it's getting shown up. So value, I think part of that is just I'm honest with with people, and maybe to a fault, loyal. At times in my life, and
Mm.
um, believing in the product, believing the message. If I believe in it, I'm all in. I've drank the
Yeah.
Kool-Aid, and I'm all in. And um, that's where I felt like I was valuable. Is that if I believed in my boss or whatever, I was going to I was part of the team,
Mm.
and I was going to do my best to kind of lead us that way. So I didn't know how to separate that well early in my life. And again, I'm more reflective now. So
Sure.
I
Sure.
realize now maybe I maybe didn't know how to separate that, but it was all just kind of one thing for me.
Yeah. Well, what better traits could you ask for and value? I think that's amazing. Accountability, integrity, and I think you're right. I think that is what employers look for. I think that's what everybody looks for. I think friends look for the same thing. I mean, if you have an honest friend that's reliable, I mean, that's what everybody hopes and dreams for.
I read once by Warren Buffett, and he said that one of the things he looked for in hiring people was not exactly their degrees they get in, and I think that's important where you go to school and those things, because I've had goals to do that. But one of the things I always thought maybe was a detriment for me is I grew up on a ranch or a farm, or we called them ranches.
Hmm.
But what skills did I bring from life, and doing that, where I had to learn how to do that work? Come to find out, it's a very desirable trait to come from a place where you learn how to work,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
that really helped me in maybe many aspects of my life. And I would have to say sports does the same thing for
Sure.
me. Yeah.
Hmm. That's great. Thank you. Uh, this is probably our most interesting question, and I won't even preface it, but what do you believe is success?
Whew. My definition or the world's?
Yours, yeah.
Oh, my
What do you believe is success for you?
success for me is being able to go to sleep at night knowing I've done everything I could do that day. I try to be at peace with my loved ones. Not going to bed where I don't have friends or family or whatnot. The goal is to just be at peace where I did what I could do in the workplace, in my home.
Hmm.
And success is knowing I can wake up and keep going at it. And I
Hmm.
can't say I've been successful at that all the time, but today that's to me success, where I've given everything. I felt like I had a very good day doing what I could. And sometimes as I look back in the day, I'm not sure by the world standards I accomplished anything. But trying to keep the peace with in my family or
Yeah.
friends and things like that. I mean, I my career has been anything but peaceful, which that may seem ironic,
Hmm.
but that's the goal, is to be content.
Yeah. There's an old story that I've heard about a farmer and a new employee, and the farmer's interviewing the new employee, and he's saying, "Why should I hire you?" And the employee says, "Because I can sleep through any storm." And I think that's very similar to what you're saying. It would in this story, the farmer then wakes up during this severe storm. All the horses are, uh, or you can just hear all these sounds outside. Lightning's going, the wind is ripping off all of the tarps, and uh, the farmer goes and checks on the employee first, and the employee's sound asleep. And he was kind of confused. He goes and checks out the stables. All the horses are well put into their stables. They're secured. All the hay has been tied down. Everything was secure. And he kind of goes back and he finally realizes what the employee said when he was first hired on, which was, "I can sleep through any storm because I'll be prepared for any storm." And I think that's very similar to what you're saying now. Is if you can get a good night's sleep, that just proves that you're satisfied with your work. You're happy with where you are, and I don't think obviously we all have worries, but if you're able to rest assured that tomorrow you're going to wake up again and you're going to be okay, that gets you to fall asleep the night before, right? And so it's a very mental challenge that some people have with sleeping, and I think that's an amazing comment about success. Really good. Uh, let's shift topics a little bit. I want to know the little things you do every day, habits, activities. What's something you do on a daily basis that either helps you or keeps you going? Just things like that.
I'm a very, I've heard of this term called OCD or ADD, and I don't know what's what. Um, I've not clinically or ever been diagnosed with anything, but I can tell you, ever since I was younger, I'm very organized. I'm
Okay.
an organized person. And one of the inventions that came out that I was so darn excited about is, first I had, just when I graduated high school, I had something called a Franklin planner, and it was this booklet where I could have a schedule. I could write down my schedule,
Okay.
and then for 2 years I had this blue piece of paper, and I could schedule everything out, appointments, all these kind of things. And I got better at it. I can't say I was super organized, but I got better at it. Then they came out with something called a BlackBerry, and BlackBerry was on a Palm Pilot. There were actually two different things, but around that time frame, I could send a text or an email out, and also from my phone, and I could organize my time. And it's a
Hmm.
little like a small iPad. This is in the early '90s, and I could put my calendar in there, and I've had that habit my whole life, staying organized, to where I have to prioritize, like, what is the most important thing I can control or I can do.
Hmm.
And that may shift. And so before I go to bed every night, I go through my schedule. First, I try to plan out my month, quarters, month, weeks, days, and I'll sacrifice some things, but I try to say I want to do my goals. I got lots of goals, but I would look at my goals and how those fit into prioritizing. But if I probably not answering your question, but
No,
I'm
no,
very
you're
specific in my calendar.
yeah.
So now I use a calendar where I can see it and change the colors. I have different categories there, but that's a habit that's keeps me incredibly focused on what I want,
Hmm.
because I found when all this technology, my watches and everything else tells me where am I spending my time, I'm always surprised. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think I do that. And I took a time management class in college, just as one of those kind of classes you take as an elective.
Yeah.
And here I've been doing that for about 3 years with my own planner. I think I know exactly where I spend my time. Well, I take the class, I then track all these things that I'm doing, and I realize, man, I'm not doing anything that I want to do. Someone's taking that time from me, or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Spending all this time in other areas that I actually enjoyed, but that's not actually what I wanted. And there's this phrase I heard
Hmm.
about 10 years ago or so, good, better, best.
Yep.
and I don't know about being the best at something, but my time becomes, for me, one of my most valuable resources. It's something that wealthy people out there, they, one thing they can't buy necessarily is is good health. They just sometimes genetically they have this, and no one gets more time.
Hmm.
It's time. So I look at my time as something that's a very valuable resource. So I
Absolutely.
try to control it. Control is maybe not the right word, but I try to see what do I want to do, and that's a habit where I do want to exercise. I make sure I try to get that in. When I say exercise, it's funny to say exercise because Grandpa, their jobs were all very physical labor, and they just would look at us like, "You're going to go to the gym?" I just physically did something for all day long, and
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go do that. But so we have some luxuries, but
Yeah.
it's something that when I say exercise, it means I'm checking out of whatever I was doing, and I want to intentionally do this because it allows me some mental freedom to focus on nothing, maybe.
Yeah. Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think that's great advice.
But calendar, that's kind of my
Yeah,
thing. Yeah.
calendar, prioritizing tasks, time management. I think
It's
those are
kind of
great
that's
things.
kind of the habit, the big habit for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of over encompassing too of all the things you want to do. I mean, you talked a little bit about goals. How do you ever reach your goals if you don't plan for them?
Yeah.
So I think that's another small way of just making little steps to reach your goal is, okay, if I want this and I want it in this amount of time, what do I have to do to get there? And I think that's part of the planning you're talking about.
Yeah, it's helped me prioritize. If I want to go on a family trip someplace, and that's the fun of life, is something to look forward to. So
Absolutely.
I look way out and go, okay, how do I get there? And I may say, man, personally, I'm definitely in the midlife crisis age the last 10 years. And there's all these things maybe I've been wanting, but I think, well, but I also want this over here. And that's maybe the family trip. And that's going to require this resources and time and whatever else.
Mm,
So that's where I've learned it's been good for me to think ahead. What do I really want? And what I selfishly want maybe for the day versus what I want, down the road. It's that
mm,
opportunity cost again
yeah,
of giving, thinking this is really what I want.
yeah,
But blindly know, I mean, you don't know. Like, I mean, I've had made some, lost some, made some, and it's just, you never know. But the calendaring helps me at least stay on task.
yeah. Well, looking forward to something is always a good motivation too, right? Like you're saying, family trips, kind of are a motivation a lot of times to work hard and make the money so you can go and do it. So I think that's wonderful. Well, I just want to have a self reflection question to kind of end this interview. And I want to ask, what makes you the happiest?
Oh, easily my kids, my grandkids. That's my whole life. It's just, I mean, I enjoy people, love people. I love relationships with people. I would say some of my core values, one of them is friendships. I love my time with my friends, but there's nothing that more than replaces that than my family. I think that's whatever choices they're going to make in their life, I'm going to be their greatest cheerleader. And I think that's
Hmm.
just really joy is having a child.
Yeah. That's been a common answer, and I think it's so powerful because we've talked with a couple people now, and uh, all this success, all these things you can do in your life, and yet we do it for our families, we do it for our kids. I myself kind of run this business to take care of my kids. Trying to take care of them is one of my motivations because I want them to be happy, and if they're happy, I'm happy, kind of thing, right? And it goes back to us talking about surround yourself with happy people, and so I think that's very powerful. That family makes you the happiest.
Yeah, let me qualify maybe something we were talking about earlier.
Yeah,
I think the things when you talk about motivation and how you get through tough
yeah,
times, um, this may come out harsh, but I try to tell these younger guys when they're teenagers and such, life to say what's ahead is you have to learn to embrace the suck. You have to learn to just, this is going to be hard. If you can learn that you're going to lose more than you're ever going to win, and you can take risk and you can be okay with failure, I think that's probably, back to the success question. I think for me is part of being successful in my mind is maybe being content at night, but it's also failing over and over and over again.
Hmm.
And I've made this joke about my life and a lot of things. I've got a PhD in what not to do, and I tried a lot. I tried a lot, and I've been right more than I've been wrong, I guess, in a lot of instances. But I think part of it is just being willing to fail. And I think that's the part of the. I was watching a little movie last night with my daughter, and it was called Willy Wonka, and he has some kind of song where he talks about his hat full of dreams in the very
Hmm.
beginning.
Yeah.
And I thought about it. He didn't say head full of dreams. It was his hat, because his hat's, he's magical things keep coming out of it,
Yeah.
whatnot. And I thought, I like that. In my head, that's what I've always had is I'm not sure I've always gone after my own dreams. Maybe I chase the dreams of my kids or chase the dreams of other family, but I've enjoyed that chase of dreams and
Hmm.
driving towards something, but being willing to, looking back, is not being afraid to fail. Even
Hmm.
though I was having a twin sister growing up, I thought I was probably shy and things like that, but I was given opportunities to kind of take steps to grow. I think so. That's part of
Hmm.
success, and these things kind of full circle is like you said, taking lots of risk, and how to stay motivated doing it. I don't know. I
Oh,
think.
it's hard. Yeah. Hmm. Well, I do think that kind of just a final tidbit. I think a lot of the mental struggles and mental illnesses that people go through are because they lack the ability to fail. They fear failing, and so they don't try, or they fear doing something that would make them better, and so they kind of keep themselves sheltered and in this bubble. And that's not all cases, but from what I have seen, that's kind of the main reason why people have mental illnesses is because they're not willing to do things out of their comfort zone. Not picking on anybody, but looking at OCD, right? You almost have to train yourself to like leave something that's not perfect on the floor to say, hey, it's okay. The world's not going to end. You have to actually rewire your psychology of the way you think about things like that, and it starts exactly with what you just mentioned. So
Yeah, and I appreciate you asking. I mean, you're making me think about things I don't normally think about with your questions. And I think one thing that's, having had some children, seeing their personalities, sometimes I think in my own siblings, my family, and my wife's extended family, like, were we raised by different parents?
yeah,
But
sure.
what's great is that having three beautiful daughters, I realized that the way, each individual, we all think about ourselves, is nobody is like born with this incredible confidence.
Nope.
And so I've learned with especially, these, sometimes these really pretty girls, sometimes they're told they're pretty all the time, or you're handsome, you're smart, you're whatever, and you're pretty, you're cute, and that doesn't mean they believe it. So
Mm-hmm.
um, I think one of the things that is interesting is just in life itself, how do we individually gain confidence in ourselves?
Mm.
Where's that finally start to drive and come from? And I think a lot of us just is we get think about other people growing by serving, and also uh, you know developing knowledge for ourselves, and a skill. Once we do that, we then realize we're useful to
Mm.
society. And I think communities themselves do much better when people are, that's that. Oh, one example would be, I hope I'm not taking,
No, you're fine.
one of the things I looked at one time was kind of an assisted living business. And I looked at two different business models. One was a 55 and up, mostly 60, 70 years of age, and they had all televisions in there. It was pretty awesome. It looked, great entertainment. And the other place had music and puzzles,
Mm.
and it was quickly easy to see which group was thriving more. And it was the group that was using their minds at a later age that were thriving, had a sense of
Mm.
community versus the other group that was, for lack of a better phrase, brain dead.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to think, okay, how do I stay energized and engaged? And maybe that's
Mm.
all coming up. But yeah, I just want, for labeling someone in a group, sometimes it's easier to do, but how do we all get through these picadillos and weird things we all do?
Yeah.
We're afraid to kind of say out loud, whatever that may be, but how do we gain the confidence? And that may be one way. And you're doing, it's really how do you motivate somebody? We just need somebody to believe in us. One person believes in me, it's amazing what I feel like I can do.
Yeah. I think that's kind of the goal with this page and Empower You in general as a company is just trying to make people feel their own self-worth. You talked about outward affirmations coming in. Obviously, we want to encourage you. It feels really good for somebody to tell you that you're pretty, you're handsome, you're strong, you're smart. But once you start telling yourself that I am strong, I'm smart, I can do this, that's when I think real changes happen. So the goal is to not just have somebody always motivate you, but to learn how to motivate yourself to gain your own confidence, like you just mentioned. And it goes to show, kind of like with your assisted living example, just having your brain working all the time, doing something, staying busy, not doom scrolling all day, doing the little things every day that make you a better person can really make a big impact in your life. So, well,
Well, I want to say
please,
one more thing since you're my son.
yeah,
Um, I think sometimes you look at your fathers and you say, "Golly, look at Dad." That's how I think of my dad. I think, wow, all the things that he's done was pretty amazing. But I look at you as my son and I go, man, the man that you are is amazing to me. So I'm proud of you.
I appreciate that. I look up to you more than you could imagine.
You're doing great.
Well, I appreciate your time joining us today, and I'll give you a hug. Thanks for coming.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Love you. I'm getting old.